Welcome to the third part of my video series on how to write an architectural thesis at undergraduate level. Part 1 of this video series dealt with selection of topic. I had also given some tips on how to bring distinctiveness in your work. In part 2, I had described the format of the report. Also, I had explained how to start writing the thesis and how to organize your data. In addition, I had given some very important directives and tips. In this video, I will be explaining the contents of chapter 1. As already explained in the previous video, the thesis book is written under 3 sections: the front matter, the body, and the end matter. Though front matter is the first section of your book, it is written last. You start with writing the body of the thesis and keep developing the bibliography simultaneously. The body of the thesis starts with introduction. This is the first chapter. The title of the chapter is also introduction as a general practice. Here, first you have to introduce your topic, justifying the need of the study. Then you briefly describe the architectural interventions that you intend, and then describe the methods adopted by you in achieving your goal. The general outline of the first chapter of a thesis is shown on your screen. You may either add or delete or give a different name to any heading or subheading, but this matter has to be included in chapter 1. The thesis matter starts with introduction. Please don't get confused with preface or foreword. Preface and foreword are part of the front matter and not part of the body of the thesis. The body of the thesis starts with introduction. This is the part that is supposed to give the reader a clear idea of what your thesis is all about. It shouldn't be too descriptive, but it should give the reader a strong vision of the direction you want your project to take. Here are some ideas on what you can write in the introduction. Firstly, you can present the problems and concerns which brought you to choose to work on your proposal. You should do this without using the word I and without presenting your proposal just yet. Inform your reader of the present scenario, the unsatisfactory conditions, and the problems that you feel need to be solved and that you can actually solve them architecturally. These would include such aspects such as technical problems, incompatibility of present site, need for proper planning, need for recognition of potentials, etc. Make sure though that you stick only to relevant factors. Try not to lose focus so early. State the reasons why it is necessary to conduct the study which will lead to your solution. This is sometimes called the rationale. This is the tip. Here you rationalize what you are doing. Why in the world must you do this? Will it make the world a better place? Just consider, does your project have a historical background? Most problems do. Trace it. Then present it clearly and coherently. But be careful about delving too much on the historical context. Once you have connected the historical events with present developments and the problems at hand, move on. Ask yourself these questions. Do you have a clearer and deeper understanding of the conditions pertinent to your problem? Do you want to find a way to solve it? If there are already existing ways of solving it, are you interested in going the extra mile to come up with a better solution? If your answer to these questions is a resounding yes, then tell your readers so. Again, do not use I and do not actually address your readers. All you have to do here is convince your reader that your project is worth your effort and readers' attention. Describe the nature and purpose of your research. Briefly describe the conditions of your study locale. You should do this in an informative manner which is not too technical. Indicate what you hope to achieve. Before you start with the next section, make sure that you have linked all the things you have discussed. Do not leave the reader wondering where on earth you got the idea of conducting this study. If you can come up with a clever parting statement, then by all means do. In case you are using a separate heading for writing the justification of the topic, then you must emphasize on the need of the project and not need of the study. One example is shown on the screen. While justifying the need of your study, you need to keep the following questions in mind. Who will benefit from your studies? How can this study be of any help in promoting better architecture? This may deal with the social, economic, or cultural aspects of the project. You can even combine or address all the aspects if you like. But hold it. You cannot actually solve the problems with your thesis in blink of an eye. You cannot alleviate poverty nor improve the whole bureaucratic system through your study. But it can be an instrument in doing so. Always keep in mind that you are an architect, not a psychologist, sociologist, physician, nor a politician. And so you must always direct your discussions on the architectural aspects of your work. Next, you write the aim of the thesis. Every thesis should have a main point, a main idea, or a central message. This can be stated as aim. Aim is what you hope to achieve. The primary focus of your research project is usually expressed in terms of aims and objectives. Many students find it difficult to understand the difference between aims and objectives. However, in the academic context, there is a clear distinction between these terms. Aim is what you hope to achieve. Objectives are the actions you will take in order to achieve the aim. Aims are statements of intent. They are usually written in broad terms. They set out what you hope to achieve at the end of the project. Objectives, on the other hand, should be specific statements that define measurable outcomes. Example, what steps will be taken to achieve the desired outcome? When writing your objectives, try to use strong positive statements. You can use strong verbs like collect, construct, classify, develop, devise, measure, produce, revise, select, synthesize. Avoid using weak verbs like appreciate, consider, inquire, learn, know, understand, be aware of, listen, perceive. Objectives should also be SMART. By SMART, what I mean is S for specific, M for measurable, A for achievable, R for realistic, and T for time constrained. Your objectives should be specific, meaning be precise about what you are going to do. They should be measurable. They should be achievable. Don't attempt too much. A less ambitious but completed objective is better than an over-ambitious one that you cannot possibly achieve. It should be realistic. Do you have the necessary resources to achieve the objective? The time, money, skills, etc. They should be time constrained. Determine when each stage needs to be completed. Is there time in your schedule for unexpected delays? Do think about it. Aim is generally written in one or two sentences. Objectives are written in multiple points. I am giving an example to explain how to write aim and objectives for a thesis. Aim of a project is to investigate the prevailing conditions at the other railway station, exploring the scope for redevelopment. In one sentence, the purpose, the scope, your intent, what you hope to achieve, and your position in the thesis, all these are made evident. Objectives. Now read the objectives that specify the actions to be taken in order to achieve the desired aim. First objective: to study the current problems at the other railway station with respect to passenger comfort, traffic flow, and the surrounding areas. To collect the data on projected future footfall and other statistics from the feasibility report prepared by the government. To collect the data regarding expected development in the vicinity of the station. To study the historical, cultural, and social importance of the locality. To synthesize all the collected data in order to establish the justification of redevelopment. To develop the project requirements for redevelopment. When you write the aim and the objectives effectively, they form an image in the mind of the reader of what your thesis is about. You can add more objectives. This is just an example. Here is another example of aim and objectives. The aim is to design a space that would be a hybrid between a cultural hub and an entertainment center, which would form a node for holding and experiencing cultural, social, and commercial activities. The objectives are to explore the symbolic character of the culture, social activities, and commerce of the region. To explore the interrelationships of the spaces and the challenges of disparities caused by design, which restrict spaces to particular segment of public. To evolve a contemporary model of conventional Indian entertainment hub to design a well-composed and optimized existence of different functions, to study and propose appropriate MEP services, including lighting, acoustics, and smart features. Propose a design complying with all applicable statutory regulations, good architectural practices, and environmental requirements. Some graphics can be added to emphasize your point. The objectives mentioned here are the objectives of the research. However, objectives of the projects can also be written. Objectives of the proposed project can be to revive the culture of the region, to encourage social interaction between the community members, to provide small-scale trading and business opportunities to the community members, to facilitate entertainment and recreational activities for the community as well as the local residents, to promote social and cultural functions, to provide employment opportunities, upliftment of the community, and to hold competitions of indoor games and outdoor sports. Scope of the study. It's very important that you state in the clearest manner possible the coverage of your study and project. To do this, you must first ask yourself what you need to do and why you need to do them. Once you have identified these, you can again categorize or group them to gauge the task better. Let's say you will be covering a lot of investigation with respect to the site. Identify what you need to know as required by your project. Then let's say again that you also have to conduct deeper research about your thesis topic. Write down your purposes. Elaborate if possible. Then let's say further that you will be conducting case studies. What will be your subjects? What will be you looking into? Will it be the locale, the users, the activities? Then you have to explain why. Define the conceptual, analytical, experimental, and methodological boundaries within which the exercise will be carried out. Limitations of the study. Most researchers make the mistake of using this part of the thesis to state simply what the project will not be about. Actually, you have to write here the constraints or limiting factors that might affect your research and therefore the final output. Some examples would be budgetary limits, unavailability or inaccessibility of data, and of course our favorite excuse, time constraints. However, these limitations are determined only to keep your study at a realistic level and in no way should be used as an excuse for personal shortcomings or blocks in the outcome of the project. The thesis, though a theoretical exercise which needs no immediate application, should however be as realistic and achievable as possible. It would only mean that you will be dealing with assumptions which will support your study and give substance to your work. Further, it can bring your project into a more realistic sense and create a more formidable framework for the design. For example, you are unable to obtain the actual contour plan of your site and you don't have the data on the soil bearing capacity. In practice, these details are verified by a surveyor through topographical and geotechnical survey. For the purpose of your thesis, you are going to refer to Google Earth and derive contour map from it. You need soil bearing capacity to decide on the type of foundation for your proposed design. Since you don't have the authentic data, you will be adopting the data of a nearby site. Now, since your proposal is based on these presumed parameters, you shall mention this under assumptions. How will you write this? You will write, due to the unavailability of the topographical survey report for the subject site, the contours have been derived from Google Earth and are assumed to be true for the purpose of this study. Under architectural interventions, you will state how you will solve the problem architecturally. You will write down the various architectural considerations or measures proposed by you to achieve a viable, efficient, attractive, economical, and a lucrative proposal. Some points which can be written as architectural interventions are shown on your screen. Integration between built and open spaces along with the surrounding environment. Clustered organization of spaces based on physical proximity requirements for functionality and for ease of interaction. Well-defined and efficient vehicle movement pattern and pedestrian circulation areas, minimizing the crossings. Spatial distribution of hierarchy of activities with due consideration of linkage elements, landscaped areas, breakout spaces, ancillary spaces and utilities. Selection of durable, long-lasting and low-maintenance materials. Climate responsive and energy efficient design promoting sustainability and user comfort. Suitable structural systems and construction techniques, enhancing aesthetics through form, volume, facade, lighting, shadows, and landscape, fusion. These are some of the points. Architectural interventions have to be in line with the nature of your project. On the screen is given an example of an agro-tourism project. The sustainable techniques proposed are depicted through a picture. Graphics always convey better than text. The materials proposed and the energy efficiency strategies proposed are also depicted through a picture in addition to the text. Picture of parking system is self-explanatory. Sketches can be added for points like vernacular architecture. Many more such interventions can be added. In any research, it is not only important that you know what to do, but more essentially how you will do it. You can choose from a number of methods used in an architectural research. They may be descriptive, analytic, or a combination. Data can be collected from two sources, that is internal and external. The data collected from internal sources are called primary data, whereas the data collected from external sources are called secondary data. Primary data are those which are collected afresh and for the first time, and thus happen to be original in character. Secondary data, on the other hand, are those which are already been collected by someone and which have already been passed through the statistical process. There are various methods of collecting data. Method should be selected according to the nature, time, and cost. For collecting primary data, the first method is Survey. Collecting data through interviews of the people is called survey method. Data can be collected in person or through telephones or by means of mails. Questionnaires can be prepared to be more specific in obtaining answers. You need to prepare different set of questions for different set of people. You need to decide on the type and size of your sample. For example, if your thesis is on agro-tourism, you want to know the inclination and interest of people towards agro-tourism. The questionnaire for this purpose would consist of questions on basic data like age, qualification, occupation, income range, etc., so that you can gauge what type of people are interested in agro-tourism. Then you would ask about any agro-tourism done by them earlier and ask them to describe their experience, what they liked and what they disliked. Then you would ask them their suggestions on improvement. Those who have never had a previous experience, you would ask their expectations from an agro-tourism, whether they are looking for activity, adventure, health, tranquility, etc., and whether they would visit alone or with family or with friends. From all these answers, you would be able to frame your design program. Now, to whom will you ask these questions? Will you select randomly, or people from different backgrounds, or known people who you think would be interested? And to how many people would you give this questionnaire? So this is the first type of your sample of people, and you need to decide on the size of your sample. The second set of people or sample would be the local people. That is the people residing in the locality of your site. To them, you would ask different questions to know the potential of agro-tourism, the type of local agriculture, success expectation of agro-tourism, infrastructure readiness of the place for your proposed project, the contribution of the local people in entertaining the tourists, etc., etc. Again, you have to decide the size of the sample, that is, to how many people would you distribute the questionnaire or verbally interview them. Like this, you have to decide on different sets of people and prepare different questionnaire for each sample. The second method of collecting primary data is observation. A lot of data can be collected by observing activities of persons or by observing features of a place. Mechanical observation means observing not by your own eyes, but by using mechanical devices like camera, video, or scanner. The third method is experimental method. That is collecting data by conducting experiments in labs or on field. For instance, importing a crop that is not native and planting it on your site and then observing if the crop grows successfully. Since there is no previous record of the data that you have collected through experimenting, it becomes a primary data. Secondary data is the data that is already collected and used by someone else. It becomes much easier to collect secondary data than the primary one. Secondary data can be collected from several sources. Library is the best source. All kinds of books, publications, research-oriented deeds, researched publications, magazines, newspapers, official publications, etc. can be found in libraries, like British Council Library. Government publications are also important sources for collection of secondary data. The business organizations have to compulsorily submit their annual reports of income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement, etc. to the government bodies. Such reports and statements are very good sources of secondary data. Besides, different government bodies update and publish government tax records, birth registration, house sale or purchase, marriage registration, per capita income, etc. So such government publications are also important sources for secondary data. Trade, professional and business associations also give information about their activities through different kinds of publications. Some business organizations have their own library. Private business firms collect important data. For example, a local publisher has almost all the information of the local people, like their addresses, phone numbers, estimated income, purchase habits, etc. Advertising media like magazines, newspapers, radios, and televisions prepare useful data for householders and business organizations. Big universities also carry out local, national, and international level researches and publish them. Internet, of course, is the biggest source. Now that you know the sources and methods for collecting data, select the appropriate method and write down the methodology for collecting data, analyzing data, and using data for your research and design proposal. Citations in this section should be limited to data sources and references of where to find more complete descriptions of procedures. Do not include description of results. The methodology can include process flow diagram, wherein the process of conducting the research can be shown diagrammatically. The process flow can be depicted in a chart form also, where each step is described briefly. The methodology can be presented in a tabular form, where the proposed methods to be adopted at each step are mentioned, along with the sources from where the data can be obtained. A sample is shown on the screen. For the chapter on background study, the content would be contextual research on history, culture, psychology, trend, nature, built forms, economic issues, social issues, etc. And the methodology would be selection of appropriate articles, news items, works, written matter, and government publications. Extraction, synthesis, and collation of the relevant data would formulate the chapter. And the sources for this data would be online catalogs, electronic database, books, journals, newspapers, magazines, government publications, periodicals, reports, etc. And this is going to be a secondary data. In the same manner, the methodology is written for the other chapters. Writing the methodology judiciously and referring to it periodically will keep you focused throughout your journey of research. Before ending this video, this is a note for my audience. Many a times students get stuck midway. Sometimes students get carried away with a particular idea and get so engrossed in elaborating that idea that they drift from the main purpose of the thesis. So do read often, what you have written under the aim and the objectives. This will keep you focused. If you have any suggestions on my videos, please write to me on the mail ID given on the screen. With this, I come to the end of the third part of my video. Please see part 4 for further learning. Enjoy working on your thesis.